Bleav in Vikings on the air for today, Tuesday, August 6th. And I'm your host, Mike Welbshaw, ready to talk Vikings football with all of you as the team returns to the practice field later on today after a day off on Monday. More importantly, though, for our purposes, today I have the pleasure of welcoming back a familiar face and voice for all of you at Bleav in Vikings, because it is Bryant McKinnie, who you all are very familiar with, obviously from his days playing in the National Football League and for the Minnesota Vikings, but also for his work here on Bleav in Vikings before I was lucky enough to join the team. So we'll bring him in a minute. But first, a little bit of business. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything online sports betting. Right now, you can receive a 50% free bet of up to $250 on your first deposit to bet on anything from the Olympics to baseball to Formula One racing. Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to their online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of their over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Use promo code Bleav, BLEAV, for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. Bet Online, the game starts here. And Bryant McKinnie, for you, the 2024 season of Bleav in Vikings starts right here. Welcome in, my friend. How you doing?
I'm pretty good. Thank you very much for having me. Happen to be in Minnesota right now, so great
Yeah.
start.
Yeah, man. You're at the hotel on the campus of TCO Performance Center, and you had to scramble and make the most of your trip because you were in for the Monday night practice, which was postponed / canceled due to weather. They pushed it to later on in camp, August 12th. But you and Tom West and the Vikings PR crew figured it out, made it worth your time. And I understand after having dinner with you last night, they've had you busy and you've taken in all the sights and sound of TCO Performance
I
Center. How's it been?
definitely had a full experience yesterday with Tom West. When I was playing, Tom was with the PR, but now Tom's part of the alumni
Yeah.
group, so which is good because I'm very familiar with Tom. And yes, I got with Tom yesterday morning like 9:45, and I got back to my hotel like around 4:45. So it was definitely a long day. I took a tour. I met pretty much a lot of the staff. Got a chance to meet the GM in person. I ran into the head coach again. I seen Rob Brzezinski. I pretty
Yeah.
much seen a lot of people. I did like 3 different interviews. I did one of their podcasts. I think I did like 2 podcasts maybe, and actually did like another interview for Vikings.com that'll be released later. So we definitely made the most of the day. It was a full day.
Awesome. That's cool. The obviously I was there for 15 years. So you and I were together for the very first part of my career there from
Mm.
'05, which would have been Tice's last year. And then your last full season was 10. So, when we were there together, that whole content machine that you took part in yesterday, the
Mm.
interviews on camera, the studio, the podcast, all that stuff was
Non-existent.
like just baby stages,
Okay.
and like think what it is now. I mean, we were at Winter Park, and we shoehorned a studio in there, but
Mm.
remember there was 2 different weight rooms, right? And we shoehorned a studio in there where the old racquetball courts were at Winter Park. Now they've got a $5 million studio inside their practice facility. Isn't that all that stuff pretty crazy?
Yes, it's a whole nother division that opened up a lot of jobs for other people because that
Yeah.
job wasn't, was non-existent. I feel like when I was playing there, Twitter was big. Instagram wasn't even as big yet. So Twitter was. So then like when Instagram came, that became like a big social media thing. And like now I follow the Vikings, so I watched like their riddles at the end of practice, and I just always sit there and wonder
Yeah.
like what it would be like if like guys like Pat Williams and everybody was doing those back when I played, which I feel like would be hilarious. And have to have a closed caption for only when Pat speaks to have closed
Yeah.
captions so we understand what he's saying.
Oh. Well, I mean, hey, from you've got a business idea and a business project that could help out with that. But we can
Absolutely.
get in, yeah, we can get into that more of that later. But you know what though, you bring up a great point because like Pat Williams, Jared Allen,
Hmm.
like
Chester Taylor, you had You had
Yeah.
like a lot of big personalities
Yes.
on that team. Even Brett Favre was a big personality. You had a lot of big
Mhm.
personalities when I played with the Vikings, and I feel
Yeah.
like they would have definitely ate up social media and probably had big followings because of the platforms and the team. So it's just a different time though, but definitely some big personalities who would not have shied away from the camera.
Visante Shenko.
Rashante as well. He could be a
Yeah,
little
man.
quiet, but
Yeah.
you had a lot. Fred Smoot was a big personality. Like you had
Oh,
some
yeah.
people who was going to give you personality. So I would have loved. I can only imagine how that would have went.
Oh, yeah, man, that would, we'd make some money with some advertising dollars there because 'cause there'd be lots of eyes on the screen, and ears
Absolutely.
listening. A lot of great personalities. Mike Tice was good for a soundbite too, then that's your guy, right? So,
Yeah.
you know what, though? And honestly, like, talking about what you and I are gonna be doing together this season, I'm really looking forward to digging into the well, so to speak, and getting some of those personalities on the show, which you've done a great job of
Yes.
doing over the years on Bleav in Vikings, is
Oh, I
getting
appreciate
some
it.
personalities and some solid football minds in here on the show. You're going to be joining every Monday during the season, so I'm looking forward to our chats.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, I definitely want to reach back out to some guys and get them back on the show, and especially some former Vikings, just so people can kind of see what they're doing and where they're at now, and be able to just kind of follow them on social media or whatever.
Yeah. And you've got some other fellow contributors as well from the past and former hosts, and we're both well connected to the organization, so they've got a lot of great content producers within the walls of TCO Performance Center as well. So between the two of us, we're going to be able to bring a lot of great personalities and minds into Bleav in Vikings. So I think the listeners are going to love it. As I mentioned, it's going to be you and I Monday mornings after games.
Mhm.
And that's going to give listeners and viewers, a pretty good perspective on the game they just saw happen the day before.
Right.
And
Still be emotional about because I always say like give yourself 48 hours to kind of get over stuff. So they're still
man,
gonna be pretty emotional, whether a win or a loss, and just kind of like want to talk about it and hear about the game and hear some insight and just try to get some players on as well to discuss with us as well.
what was that like for you in the aftermath of a game? Were you able to give yourself? I mean, because I mean, I think they gave you we had like a 15-minute or 20-minute buffer before they'd let media into the locker room. But you're like going to battle for 3 hours against other grown men on the football field, and then you've got people coming in 20 minutes after it's over peppering you with questions. Was that a challenge for you when you were playing to have to hold back or to keep your emotions in check?
Um, no, I feel like I got used to it after a while, so I kind of knew what to say politically to
Yep,
be
yep.
to be nice. But just some things when people ask like what happened, it's like I can't tell you what happened. Like, I mean, you watched the game or something like that, so or you can, for the most part, speak from your perspective, or if something happened, there was a breakdown on the team, just give that. But in the most part, is you have to like it's in the past now, so now you have to look forward to what game is next and just perform better. That's if you're dealing with a loss. But if you're dealing with a win, all those interviews are super easy.
Yeah. The interviews are easier, the plane rides are shorter, the bus rides are more comfortable after wins, right? And there was, particular buildings I always felt like, over 15 years, getting out of that building with a win felt like you won 2 games, like Soldier Field in Chicago.
Mhm.
If you get out of Soldier Field with a win, you almost feel like you just won 2 division games. You know what I
Right.
mean?
No, I
Um,
definitely feel you. So there, and even Green Bay, because Green Bay can be
yep.
tough to win at too. So for me, it was during my era, it definitely was Green Bay and Chicago. Now I'm pretty sure is Detroit is now they're on the rise now too. So I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure guys feel like that about Detroit. But me never felt like that about Detroit because I don't think I ever lost to Detroit. I don't recall. If I
Yeah.
did one time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
It's a different Detroit now, man.
is totally different now. And I watched the progress too. So, I think they were on what is that show on where they followed him.
Oh, Hard Knocks? Yeah.
Yeah, they were on there, and then I just watched. I think their head coach came from the Dolphins, right?
Yeah, he did. He was a
Yeah, I
Dolphin.
think
Yep.
he was there when I was there, or something like that. It might have been an overlap there. I remember him.
He was a tight end. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. He was a tight end. So, and tight end offensive lineman, man, they work together. So you guys may have been together or very close to it. But yeah, he spent some times with some other organizations as well. But yeah, I mean, former player, knows what it's like in the trenches, knows how to build a culture, knows how to be a workman, be workmanlike, lunch pail guy. Absolutely. And the team embodies that. Um,
Yeah, and
and
I feel like I like to see like a lot more guys who are former players that are getting into the coaching realm, just because I feel like they do know what it's like, and just from the experience, I feel like it's hard for somebody who's never done it to kind of coach people, and then it's like a lot of those coaches were the old school coaches who kind of like put a hard workload on people, and then they really didn't get it like that. Okay, you have to ease up some days or sometimes when guys are struggling because of the body. So guys who played knows what it's like and knows like when it's time to pull back. And I would say Coach Tyson was kind of like that too.
yeah.
He was like, okay, let me pull back a little bit because I am wearing these guys out. I am giving them like some brutal practices. So I appreciate those players, those guys.
Yeah, that's well said, Brian. And we talked about that at dinner last night, right? With regard to Kevin O'Connell, where it's like,
Mhm.
um, like coaches need to be effective communicators with today's players, and today's players are different than yesterday's players, and that doesn't make it good or bad. And even if you think it's bad, it doesn't matter. It is what it is. And so you have to be able to communicate and understand players' needs, anticipate how they're going to feel about things. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about. You thought Mike
Yeah.
Tyson embodied that. I'm pretty sure that current Vikings players feel that way about current Vikings coach Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah, well, I think everything evolves, and you have to just be with the learning curve and learn how to stay relevant within everything that's like evolving. And I feel like Kevin O'Connell is doing a great job. I feel like he is giving the youthful energy. They can relate to him,
Mhm.
and I feel like they rallied around him. Even like his first year, he came in and they had like a pretty good season. So I think the young, good energy can help. Get with the younger guys that are there now.
Isn't that amazing what, like, starting off well, what that does for the entire arc of an experience or a career? Like, O'Connell has that great season right away. I think
Mhm.
they won 13 or 14 games. And just that confidence that it gives the whole program after you start well, as opposed to when you start slowly and then you have to progressively build something up. It's a higher mountain to climb. Like, starting fast is so important, and I think about that with JJ McCarthy, right? The rookie quarterback for the Vikings right now. It's like you only get one try at this to start off well, and it's really important to get off on a good foot.
Right, and I feel like he should really take his time and learn, learn to be a pro and learn from the guy that's ahead of him, and don't feel rushed. Don't take too long, but don't feel rushed to get out there, because once you get out there, you have to put your best foot forward, and from there,
Mhm.
everybody's going to have their eyes on you, and that's from there they're going to look for you to like lock in a position. So just take that time to learn from the starter, Sam Donald, and learn from him and get as much knowledge as you can, and then when it's time to take over, whether it's mid-season or whatever, like take over and feel like you're very well equipped to go out here and do what you need to do. So I'm be
I,
very
I
productive.
think Yeah, and I think that's the team's intention. Like, when I just look back now at what they did in the offseason, I see they sign a veteran in free agency. They
Mhm.
take a quarterback in the first half of the first round. I definitely see that their intention was to bring McCarthy up exactly the way you just said. Now, some players, look at CJ Stroud, right, in Houston. He was ready to go.
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean he's going to be a better pro than someone who took a couple of years to get going. Aaron Rodgers took a few years to get going in Green Bay. He sat. So there's no like one right way to do it. It's just figuring out what is the way for this particular player.
Right.
And I think what you're kind of saying is your sense is it's okay if McCarthy's way is sit back and learn for a little while before you get put in there. That's okay.
That's okay. I feel like a lot of fans rush it like it's a first round pick. We need him to play now, but it's like, is that really the best for the team? You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
allow him time to process everything. Snap count, just getting used to being in the NFL, and let him step out there when their comfort level. Because the more comfortable he is, the more confidence he's going to have on the field, and the better plays he'll make. So don't rush him to being on the field because you're excited to see this new quarterback. Give him the time that he needs, and he'll step out there once the coaching staff and everyone else feels like, okay, he's ready.
Yeah. So when you look at the infrastructure right now that's in place on this roster for whoever the quarterback is, like I know people talk about Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Hawkinson when he's healthy, and that's awesome. They have great weapons. Aaron Jones, the running back. But how about the importance of your left tackle, right tackle being solidified in the way the Vikings have it? I mean, Christian Darrisaw, Brian O'Neill, about as good as it gets
Mhm.
in terms of a tandem. That's important for a quarterback too.
Oh, it definitely is. It gives him like a comfort level to not have to look over his shoulder and feel, safe. And then that allows him more time and actually make better decisions. So, and not feeling rushed. So, having a solid offensive line is definitely, I always say the offensive line is the engine to the car. The quarterback is the
Yeah,
driver, and your receiver, your tight end, and running back are the wheels. So, car can't go anywhere unless the engine is operating, properly. So,
yeah.
yeah, you definitely want to have that.
It's you talk about that's a good analogy too, the engine of the offense being the offensive line because the engine is a big complex piece of machinery
Hmm.
that's got different parts to it, and that's exactly how an offensive line is. And whenever you have position battles in camp along your offensive line, like think about you don't have to name the examples, but think back to your time playing. Whenever there was a competition at left guard or right guard or center, like that affects the whole group. And as a stalwart, like a for sure starter like you were, you're sitting there being like, I know we got to have this competition. It's got to be fair, but like, let's get to a decision here on who's playing because we got to practice together and you got to operate as one. Like, it's 5 individual guys, but it's like one, you got to operate as one unit.
And the line actually is comfortable. Like the line, when they can see a competition, the line is certainly comfortable with one person over the other. Like, you know what I mean? It's something that the person may possess, whether it's the will to just be out there and get out there and fight. Because just during the course of my years playing, I've had situations where we've had to fall to like a starter had got injured, and you had to now it was like a battle between two other backups. And I remember one year, I'm gonna say it, I was in Miami, I was at the Dolphins, my 12th season, and there was a veteran who I feel like was just kind of skating by and always was okay with being a backup, never really had to play much. And then, a situation came where Incognito had got injured and no, he
Mm,
I got suspended something. And it became between this veteran who has been there and a rookie. And they eventually asked me my opinion. I took the rookie because the rookie just was so like feisty and want to get out there and win. And I'd rather have him who's going to give it, who I know is going to go out there and give his all instead of somebody who's kind of like a little timid and like, oh, I didn't really want to be out here. Like, you know what I mean? Kind of put on the spot because they were in a comfort zone of not really having to worry about playing because they were always the backup to somebody who didn't really miss games. So I was like, put
yeah.
the rookie in here next to me because that'll make me play better too because I'm confident in him. You know what I mean? I don't have to keep looking over to see how this person's holding up. So that all that plays a fact. So yeah.
Yeah. So that you said something that I wanted to go back to. You said, the team asked me what I thought. And I think people always wonder that. Like, you don't necessarily want players making all the decisions, but you definitely want input from the players. Was that a common thing? Did most teams you were with at some point ask you your opinion on something like that?
For sure, when I was with the Dolphins, that happened. And I'm glad they asked me because
Yeah.
it was just a difference where I know somebody was going to go out here and just give it their all because they wanted to start. They were rookie, like this was like their moment, and they were giving a lot of effort. And you had somebody else who was kind of just like, I don't know, I don't know if he was nervous. I don't know. It was just I could just feel the difference, and I didn't want to. I didn't feel comfortable being next to somebody who was giving me a nervous energy compared to somebody who's out here just going to scrap and just do their best. I'd rather that.
Yeah. Yep. Another note I had written down here too, as I was kind of thinking about our conversation today, and we talked about this last night, is that concept of like at this time of year in training camp,
Mm,
where you're going like the player across from you is not just a face in the crowd. The player across from you is Jared Allen, or the
mm,
player across from you is Jason Taylor. When that happens, Do you truly feel that's a better experience and an environment where you can improve when you're being challenged by a really good individual, or do you think that's an overblown concept?
No, when you're in training camp and you have an opportunity to practice against somebody who's really good, take advantage of it. Because me and Jared, we would talk to each other, and he would tell me like, "Oh, this is what I'm looking for," and like we give each other tips on things. Because at the end of the day, we're
Yeah.
teammates. Um, but even when you have inter squad scrimmages, that's still a practice, but it's against somebody fresh and new. So you try to now work on the things that I didn't win against Jared with all week or all training camp against them. You know what I mean? So it's, to me, it was always good for me to have at practice a good defensive end that I had to face, because it made jobs a little easier, game day, because you had a great guy who was good in the run and the pass. And Jared and I communicated well. And I would even say, even when I first got to Minnesota, even though he didn't really rush the edge much, but he would come out there sometimes, is Chris Hovan would like talk to me about hand placement and things like that, which I later on learned like was very important to have certain hand placement and keep swiping and moving your hands to gain like leverage. Um, he would talk to me too,
Mm.
very early in my career, about that too. So that's when I started realizing the importance of it, and then I started watching people like Walter Jones and watching his hand placement and things like that.
Man, that's a good one to watch too, Walter Jones, dang.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool because as a player, I'm sure you've got so many different inputs of information coming in, right? You got your position coach coaching you, you got your offensive coordinator with the scheme. You're trying to be in the good graces of your head coach. You got teammates, you got media chirping, right? I mean, there's just, especially this time of year, man, there's got to be just so much stimulation for these players, and I'm sure focusing in is like a daily challenge and task.
Yeah, but I think guys, when they go out on the practice field, it's like every time they go out there, there's something that in their mind they're like, okay, today I'm gonna focus on this and work on
Mm,
getting better. Whether it's snap count, whether it's hand placement, whether it's just receivers is how they catch the ball, things like that, just timing, stuff like that. So I feel like every time people go out there, there's something they probably seen on the film the day before that they weren't satisfied with, and then now that becomes a focus at practice each day. So you go out there and try to work on improving something.
yeah. Last couple things I wanted to bring up with you before we sort of wrap it up for the first show. The Vikings, JJ McCarthy's got a lot of fanfare and a lot of publicity, but the Vikings' most notable or most well-known player is Justin Jefferson, and I'm
Mhm.
wondering if you've had any interaction with them or what sort of your friends in the league have said about him. I've never heard anyone say anything negative about Justin Jefferson. And I think it's really cool when you've got a star player like that. And I'm wondering what your friends say about him or what your experience has been with him.
I have. I don't think I've ever really like met him. Like I've seen him
Okay.
because I went to a practice, but they were like on the field. But I've never. I don't think I've ever really talked to him or met him like that before. Maybe I will today at today's practice. Um, but yeah, like a lot of times when I was here, they were in the middle of practice, and we came out on the field and like waved from a distance.
Mhm.
So yeah, he's one I haven't met yet, but I've always heard, positive things, and kind of stays out of the way. It seems like for the most part too. So just like by his business and goes on.
Yeah, it was really cool. He after he signed his big contract, someone asked him about the type of place he lived in because it's not a big mansion on Lake Minnetonka or on White Bear Lake somewhere. And And his answer was pretty cool. He's like, I don't need all that. I'm just here by myself. I don't need all that. And
Mm.
he's great with like little kids and fans and all that. I think he's just got a great personality. So,
Yeah.
and I just think everyone's different, right? I mean, and when you're like an outspoken, brash, confident player, that there's value in that too, because
Mhm.
that gives your team some swagger and some attitude. So, you need all of it. And
Yeah.
I
I
think,
mean, it can go either way. Like some people, fans are going to like you if you outspoken and brash, or some fans are going to be like, "Oh, you're not that enough." Because I playing with Joe Flacco, they felt like he didn't say much, and like what I mean. So like
yep.
fans find things, what I mean. Either you're overconfident, like it's. I guess it got to be a happy medium. I don't really know what it is, but Joe Flacco just does his job, and it's like, yeah, but he just doesn't do this. It's like, what does he not do? It's like personality wise, he just will find something wrong. Like,
Uh,
what is going on?
yeah,
Like, he doesn't get in trouble, he doesn't bother anybody, but we're going to find something that, yeah, he just doesn't. I don't know.
yeah,
So, I mean, fans find things
yeah.
to like or dislike about people.
Hey, man, and you know what? At the end of the day, if they're getting in the end zone or helping the team win, I guess that's what
As long
matters
as
the
it's doing their
most.
job, as
Yeah,
long as they're doing what they came there to do and be productive, I can't really, I can't really
yep,
fault them for
yep.
nothing.
I'm with you on that, man. Well, you should definitely go seek Justin Jefferson out. You're going to be at practice today, and
All
he
right, so
he
I'm gonna
should
make a point to
definitely.
try to look out for him today and and go up and speak to him at practice at some point.
Absolutely, man. I mean, you had a long career with the Vikings. You have a distinguished place in the team's history. I'm sure Tom and Bob and those guys will make sure you guys meet and would love to get your reaction on him. And I'm sure fans would love to hear what you have to say about him. So,
Okay.
yeah, have fun today at practice.
Okay.
Excited to hear what you have to say about the team after you watch a practice. I know you have positive vibes so far from KOC and from Quezzy, so all that'll be good. And I'm really excited for our chats on Mondays. I mean, we're going to talk about everything, but to get
Yeah.
your perspective on line play, defensive line, offensive line, and the players' perspective on Mondays after games, man, I'm super pumped for it.
Oh, absolutely. Me too.
All right, man. Take care. Have fun today at practice. We'll catch up again next week. And yeah, man, stay safe and get home safely. All right.
All right. Thank you very much.
That's it for today's episode of Bleav in Vikings. Thanks to Bryant McKinnie for joining and looking forward to our conversations every Monday during the regular season. Remember, you can interact with Bleav in Vikings. You can email me, askwobby@gmail.com. Every email gets an answer, and some of the emails will be included in the show, especially once we get to the regular season. You can find me on X @Wobby and on TikTok @MikeWobshaw. Once again, everyone, that's it for today's show. We'll be back again tomorrow, breaking down all the action from Minnesota Vikings training camp at TCO Performance Center in Eagan as the Vikings prepare for that first preseason game this weekend. And then next week, they'll have those joint practices with the Browns in advance of their preseason game against the Browns. So lots of action to break down the rest of the week, and we will be here for it. That's it for today. Until next time, everybody, keep believing.